Welcome to this Planning Commission for the City of Hudson for Thursday, March 10th. Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is discussion possible action on February 25th, 2016 meeting minutes. Any changes or additions?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
And I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a public hearing and discussion and possible action on an application from Hanson Brothers for a conditional use permit for a planned commercial development of 20.96 acres, generally located north of Cooley Road and west of Carmichael Road. Anyone here that would like to make a comment on that?
Well, if there's no public comment, we most likely would go ahead and close the public hearing and take discussions, Jeff, so.
I'll ask one more time if anyone's interested in making a public comment on this.
Ooh, wait a minute.
Okay. So if you're here to make a comment on the public hearing for the Hanson Brothers development, now is your time, if you have so desire, if that's why you're here tonight.
That's why I'm here.
Okay. You can, if you'd step up to the microphone, please.
Oh, sure.
Give us your name and address.
Sorry, you want my name?
Yeah, and address.
Becky Maher. Do you want my home address?
Sure.
811 Highlander Trail,
Okay.
Hudson, Wisconsin. And I just wanted to request that that the council, I'm not sure how much planning's gone into what's going into that commercial development, but that you consider spaces for small business owners to own a small office building.
Okay.
And that's it.
Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, is there anyone else? Is there a motion to, I'll make a motion to close the public
And I'll
hearing.
second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. How do you want to proceed, Mr.
Well,
Darnell?
why don't we turn the floor over to Jeff Redmond, the counsel for Hanson Brothers, and also Caleb Wardalls is here from Stevens Engineers. They'll make a brief presentation. As I mentioned in my planner comments, really not looking for action tonight, but initiate some conversation, kind of get an understanding what the potential of this development is. When we went back to look at the original zoning application was for the B2 General Business District. That the Planning Commission did not recommend that. They came back, we rezoned it to the Planned Commercial District with the thought that that would give the City of Hudson an opportunity to work with the developer in regards to getting a complementary commercial development that will blend with the existing commercial development along Cooley Road and Carmichael Road, and also the proposed Carmichael Ridge housing development. So really not looking for a final decision or recommendation tonight, but kind of initiate. One thing is, general information for the Plan Commission members. But then if Plan Commission members have certain issues that they would want me to take a look at, bring back in future discussions, we'd want to try to establish some of that also.
Mr. Redmond?
Thank you, Jeff Redmond, representing Hanson Brothers. The primary purpose that we have is to try to get a kind of a comprehensive grading plan approved. We've been working for literally years with Hans Hagen, and now have working through the city, a hotel development that will put this northerly street in. And so we're trying to get a comprehensive grading plan that, and have worked with Hans Hagen. So we basically have one draining plan for the whole site. So you're managing all of that water. And so as we talked to Denny about bringing down this commercial to sort of the ultimate level, he thought that this was the right process to get it in front of you, to get your reaction to that level or any other comments you might have. So I'll ask Caleb from Stevens to kind of go through what we've come together in terms of a grading plan and elevations. Also in your packet, and he will present kind of a plot plan, if you will. We've had zero interest in any developers that have approached us and said, gee, we'd really like to do this. So this is just a concept on where lots and buildings might be. I do think that generally the expectation is that Ward Road would extend around the southerly boundary of this commercial. And that's important for kind of placement of the road, but also placement of the utilities, because there's some sense that with the Hans Hagen, they want to loop the water. And so we kind of need to know where that might be. You know, we're a little apprehensive because they might have a developer that says, hey, we want it to be this way. We understand that the only way we're going to get something approved, the whole reason for the commercial development was that there would be enough economic value there to be able to afford to put a road through, which the cities wanted. So, you know, we wouldn't ever consider a development that said, well, we don't want a road through there. We just know that that wouldn't be acceptable. So with that, I will turn it over to Caleb, and he can kind of walk through the plans that Stephen put together. Angela, I think, is playing, otherwise she would be here tonight.
Pretty much.
You have a question, Dave?
No, I was just gonna mention to Caleb, if you want to move that, he's welcome to.
And you can hold that
Yeah.
microphone.
Please.
I'll get it for you. And you can,
Thank you.
you can be in front there. So you can see what you're pointing to.
Thank you. My name is Caleb Woodars. I'm on here representing Stevens Engineering. This first display is just the mass grading plan that we've worked on for the commercial development side of the entire area. Let's see here. So Carmichael would be down here to the south, proposing a roundabout in this area, road going up to the north. Basically what we'd be doing is taking cutting the majority of the area soil here, moving it to the north part. There is an existing pond there. We would expand upon that. There is a small pond to the north, or I guess this is actually to the south. These have both been sized in conjunction with everything for the residential. Ponds have been sized for that. There really isn't a whole lot to it other than
What's the level compared to the target parking lot?
the difference between the two. I have that on this one. This is just a cross-section view of the commercial area here. Target's lot is right here, going to the west. Across the commercial, we have an environmental corridor, and residential would be here. And the difference is we're in at about an 880 and we're down at about 865, so there's about a 15-foot different drop-off through there.
How much would you take out of there then? How much dirt, what elevation is it now then?
Right now, we have anywhere from, it's like 890, so we'd be dropping down a good 12 feet in there. However, we do still have the existing berm that's there. We've stayed out of that. So if, visual berm is, what's wanted or desired, I've left that in there. It's still at the 3-to-1 slope that they have there currently. So potentially you wouldn't even see, everything that's back in there if that was an issue for some.
How high will that berm be?
Same
What
height, same height that it is now. We wouldn't be,
So from the standpoint of, what's your target grade?
target is about 880 to
And what is the top of the berm then?
about 890.
Okay.
Yeah, that would only change if they went to the adjacent property owners and got cooperation to do grading over onto the other property. then that potentially could change. But right now, they're
Correct.
maintaining the existing grades on the adjacent private property.
Right, we didn't grade out to the property line, we stayed off of that. There is potential to work with them, or if something needs to change with that berm, it would still be,
So on top of the hill then, the height of the berm that you'd see on where you're doing your cut, when finished, would be 10 to 15 feet? Am I doing my math right?
yes, it could be in spots.
Okay.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, Denny had asked us, and it's not really related to the commercial, but Denny had asked us to reach out to the Gagnons, because we have this, what was affectionately known as the northerly street that kind of went behind the clubhouse. So I've reached out to the Gagnons. Bill Warner is representing them. He was gonna talk to them. He said, he hadn't talked to them yet, but he said they would have zero interest in putting a cul-de-sac on their side of the line, but he anticipated that they wouldn't have any trouble with a construction that would allow us to dig and put the street right up to the, cul-de-sac would be on our side, but have utilities in the road go right to the property line. And so I haven't heard back from him yet, but we've reached out and he didn't see any issue with that. Worst comes to, push comes to shove, if they don't want it, then we'll set the road and utilities back, because these utilities go like 10 foot deep. So, it's not something you can just dig straight down, but he was pretty confident that they would cooperate. So just wanted to put that out there.
So what, another question for you then, from the residential side, with you cutting all that dirt out of there 10, 15 feet, what does that do then on the, get my
North.
directions right,
North
on the
and
north side?
northwest.
I mean, where there is that natural line, it looks like there's a natural grade change there. What does that do? Does that make it level with that, or what does it do?
We,
On the north side of the proposed commercial lot,
Up.
abutting Hans Hagen's property and where they wanna build houses. I wanna know how that
so
elevation.
you're saying
wise-
up in here?
No,
No?
down,
Right there.
right in there, yes, sir.
Right in here?
Yes,
This we left as existing, we haven't touched anything in there.
I understand that. I'm asking
Right.
you then, what is the elevation of that, and then what would be, when you do your cut, where,
On the commercial side. We have it in there, we'd actually be above it. Again, 880 is kind of where we're targeting, and it's 875 roughly, so it's about 5 feet lower. We do have it sloped back so that anything that goes on in the commercial will come back to our storm. It won't go through that.
and how much of a buffer is there between the commercial and then the residential part of that built, planned?
It can vary. I think we stayed about 35 feet away from the edge of the property line.
Swale between the proposed commercial and the proposed residential, John's probably, 150 to 200 feet?
Correct.
Yeah,
In width.
in width, yeah. And the purpose of that swale area is, the intent to be a buffer, a physical buffer between the commercial development and the residential development.
What were the elevations there to act as that buffer?
Yeah, I want to make just a discussion here after these gentlemen finish up, so.
And I just wanted to say John Rask is here on behalf of Hans Hagen, because this has been developed jointly with them and the hotel developer, and so it all kind of meshes together. We're hoping to have one contract do the whole thing.
Okay.
And
So that kind of takes care of the grading. And then I just have a markup for potential development. Right now, we just have pretty generic buildings and lots. We split it up into 5 lots. They all vary between 1.5 acres to 2 acres. We've proposed utilities running all the way through, 12-inch water main tying in at both ends, running an 8-inch to the north. Storm sanitary is all in there.
That's fine. Okay, you get any more information, Keela? Yeah, let me, yeah,
Help me.
Where would the business traffic, commercial traffic, which way would that route through there?
maybe I can answer that question.
Okay.
As for orientation purposes, this is Carmichael Road, this is Cooley Road, this is Family Fresh, grocery store, the office, retail, Walgreens, Culver's, and there'd be two accesses into this proposed commercial development. One would be off of Cooley Road, this is Family Fresh, this is Applebee's. There's currently a stormwater pond in this location that would be relocated, the road would come in, so there'd be two primary access to this residential development and the commercial, one on Cooley Road and one on Carmichael Road, just north of, one on Carmichael, just north of Culver's. Essentially, you come in and, this road is proposed to extend, so this residential development can go either out on Cooley or out on Carmichael Road. Now, essentially, this is being lowered. It's generally, there's only about 6 foot of elevation change from what's the north end of it to the more southerly or westerly end of it. And it's pretty level when you get here. Comes up a little bit on the westerly end, goes down, and comes down again. So when you're up here, the building sites are going to be almost the same elevation. When you're in this location, it'll be slightly higher than the existing target building. We get to this location, particularly this building, you could have a 20-foot, 25-foot differential of elevation from first floor elevations of buildings. And I'm going off what the grading pad sites are, not necessarily where the building elevations. This, and this one's about 882. First floor elevation, you're at, in the residential area, you're about 894 or so. So actually, this, these are walkouts are on back slopes, but these will be slightly higher. These residential properties actually be slightly higher than the pads of the commercial development. So access is Cooley Road, Carmichael, with a public street to be constructed, which so we won't have to force that commercial traffic out. And something we'd also want to incorporate is bicycle and or sidewalks into this, so that people coming down Carmichael, if they want to come this versus, they'll have some options on which direction to go. Okay. Really what I want to try to achieve tonight is if there's any significant concerns, what we're trying to do with the next Plan Commission meeting, we'll be bringing back the Carmichael Ridge for final approval. And we also want to get approval for the grading plans for this project. So if there's any substantial issues of, the changes of elevations, then we want to deal with that. Otherwise, we want to move this on because there's a substantial grading project this summer that would occur. We want to try to get that going as reasonably quickly as possible.
I have a question, Denny. With the addition of the commercial area and intersecting into the two entrance exits from the residential subdivision, I think when we looked at the residential, those intersections were planned, I don't know, did it incorporate the commercial traffic? In other words, they didn't think there would be a light necessary on Cooley because they thought the traffic there would be minimal and it wouldn't require it. But then when you add the commercial to it, what does that do to that intersection? And I guess I would ask that of both intersections.
Well, eventually this
That's gonna be lighted.
It's gonna be signalized.
Right,
We
I know that, I know that.
The only concern that the traffic engineers of SEH expressed to me was that with the commercial development loaded a little bit more towards the north on the east side that most of the traffic's gonna use this intersection.
Okay.
So his concern was the residential itself, 145 single-family homes, doesn't warrant signalization at this. What may warrant is if one or two of these commercial developments on this south and west side of the commercial is a heavier traffic generator. at that point, then we're gonna have to take a look where traffic is generated and warrant, when there's gonna be a warrant for signalization at that intersection at that time. The residential development itself doesn't
No, I know that.
warrant it, so.
Thank you.
The draft plans for discussion, development plans has gone, these are, again, draft only.
Well,
You feel,
yeah, when I provided to you, back when we were talking about the zoning, there was some development standards as presented by the Hanson brothers. I modified those, I'm not asking for those to be adopted tonight. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at them. If, that'll be the starting point of discussions moving forward when we start talking about types of business, or not necessarily types of business, but intensity of businesses, building heights, signage height, those types of development standards. Again, the reason we really want to negotiate those standards is to provide this transition from the existing commercial to this development to the residential. So there is a complementary, particularly with the residential development to the north and west of the site. So that's, those are, and what I'm looking for, not necessarily tonight, but, to get more chance to look at it, is there something else that you may want to have looked at?
I thought this was really done well. I mean,
Well,
our first run through.
for first, we'll ferret out, again, some of the issues such as sidewalks, bike paths, those types of things, landscaping, those will be details we'll be working at. Again, as Jeff mentioned, the reason we really want to start this process now was to have an understanding of how the grading is going to be working. We don't want, them, all of a sudden we got earth being moved out there and somebody goes, how come we haven't even talked about this yet? Well, the initial discussions, city staff doesn't have concerns of the grading, but we just didn't want to get in a period where we're trying to get ahead of ourselves on this project. So that's the reason we're being a little bit cautious on this grading issue.
Well, the only other thing I'd like to hear then is from the residential side, what is their opinion of that, and does it blend and mesh in with what everything you're trying to do? Is there enough, so the houses that adjoin this thing will be saleable and desirable? I guess I'd just like to hear your take on that, please. And I think you were ready for that question.
Yeah. Put that back in front of you. John Rask with Hans Hagen Homes. Yeah, this is something we've worked with Hanson's on from the beginning. As you recall, initially we had a concept that had residential backing up to Target and the grocery store. And our concern with that is because that's an existing condition, we couldn't really do much to buffer it, given the proximity of it all. So we went back, worked with them on a different plan that would introduce more commercial into it, but in a way that we felt could work with the neighborhood by retaining that buffer area between the commercial and the residential. And as the plan has been further revised, we've got some other ponding and stuff now that's in the area to the south, down by the grocery store, behind the grocery store there. There's some large pine trees on that hill. The area around, I'll go back to the light, but this area in here, the reason that's there is because they're big pine trees, so we're preserving those on that slope. And then the new plan actually has a pond in there to provide some separation and buffer as well. So when you figure in building setbacks plus the buffer area plus the commercial building setbacks, you probably have about 200 feet of separation. And then as we've kind of master planned this, we have an agreement with the Hansons on some covenants that we would work with them on that would deal with such things as loading docks, rooftop equipment, screening, so that we know there's some additional protection beyond perhaps what typical zoning standards would address. So we've tried to even think beyond the physical land plan part of it, but also think about the architecture and the placement of buildings and, those noise generating items like rooftop equipment, loading docks. So we feel comfortable with where the plan is today and feel like they've certainly have addressed our concerns as we've worked with them on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ken, you have anything else?
I have no more, I guess, really not looking for a decision tonight or any recommendations, but if you have time, look at those proposed standards, or at least the very starting point on it, and if there's additional things you may want to see addressed in that, please let me know. And that'll be, prior to next discussion, we'll start working on that with the Hansons.
Okay. Very clear, anything? Right. Okay. Thank you. Number 4, discussion and possible action on request to vacate Dominion Drive, formerly Exit 2 Drive, located south of Crestview Drive and north of 805 Dominion Drive and 1250 Crestview Drive, St. Croix Crossing LLC and VB Properties LLC.
Again, this is an issue that was looked at back in 2007. Reason Exit 2 Drive was dedicated the way it was because the old off-ramp, Exit 2, there was control access along the frontage of Crestview Drive, and they wanted the access to come to what's now Dominion Drive, which is between the former Perkins and the Motel 8. That to get off Crestview about 200 or 300 feet to the west of what's Dominion Drive now, have a street to extend and then drive. So that, when the Exit 2 was taken out and Exit 2 Drive, now Dominion Drive, was extended to the north, this 60-foot right-of-way really is not necessary for street purposes. Now, the whole issue for the city is, you know, we, at least in my opinion, we do not need the right-of-way for street purposes. However, there is a sanitary sewer line in that right-of-way, and there's a water main in that right-of-way. And what we would want to do, if we're going to recommend approval to the Common Council of vacating or discontinuing the right-of-way, would be to, for the owners to give us easements over the sewer and water lines, so our utility commission can get in, repair, maintain the water lines and sewer line. And then, and also have an agreement that if, and part of the purpose of really trying to get this additional lands to make these parcels larger, so they can have more development. And, but with the easements in there, buildings cannot go over the easements. Parking lot could. A parking lot or landscaping, those types of things, would be okay to put on top of the easement areas. However, the condition would be is if the city would have to get in, maintain the sewer water lines, and disrupt the private improvements, it's not going to be the city's responsibility to restore the improvements. It's going to be the private property. And that's going to be the trade-off of if they want the land from the right-of-way, that's the trade-off of giving it to them. I've talked with Kip Peters, our utility director. He's okay with that. This will go to the Water Utility Board on March 24th. I'll be at that meeting to discuss with them. But there's 3 options. One is not to vacate the right-of-way. The second option would be to vacate it with the conditions of the easements being given to the city of Hudson. And secondly, this development agreement that future owners would be responsible for restoring anything that's under or improved with private improvements. The third option is that the utility easements go to about 10 foot of the south property line. You know, we could vacate just the south 10 feet. To me, that really doesn't make a lot of sense. Back in 2007, first time I looked at this, the recommendation from myself, Planning Commission, was to recommend vacating the entire right-of-way area with the conditions of maintaining easements and getting an agreement on the restoration. I'm keeping steady with my prior recommendation.
That was only 9 years ago.
And I just want to ask the dumb question one more time. The state will never put another exit there again. So that is out of the question, because that's the reason that some of that's there, right?
That was part of the reason.
So if the answer is they're not interested.
You know, Fred, you know, to say never,
I know.
I have taken a very careful look. I took aerial photographs off of our 2-lane roundabouts out at Hanley Road. Superimposed them on this intersection. And it can work within the right, without this right-of-way. It can work.
So
And that's
if
around,
that
yeah.
chance about this much to
No,
get it,
no, I know
I think
that.
there'd be room to do it.
Does the city maintain any of this property now?
Yeah, it's a public street. The street area just north of Verizon Building, that's public street. So yes, we go in and maintain it. So that's something that we would not have that continued cost of.
And if they pave it in the future, and we have to get access to the underground utilities.
We have an easement to do that.
We have an easement, we can go in and do it. Who repairs it after we pull out?
They do.
They will. We'll have an agreement before this would be vacated, agreement that'd be a condition of approval of the vacation. Otherwise, we should not vacate it.
Right.
I'm gonna make a motion to vacate it with the conditions of all the easements that the city of Hudson needs for sanitary sewer, water utilities, and whatever else. If repair needs to be come in and made, it's at the cost of the owners of the existing lots and not the city. Or per your B designation in your planner review, I would make a motion for that.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Now, the process for potentially vacating the street right away is that next council meeting will go back with a resolution. That'll set up the public hearing date. You have to have a class 3 notice prior to any consideration of the street discontinuance or vacation. So that's gonna move this issue at least into May before the council decides the issue. If on the 24th, the water utility disagrees with the planning commission, I guess we take both recommendations to the council and we discuss the pros and cons. But by introducing the resolution at the next council meeting does not commit the council to vacating or discontinuing the right-of-way. It only initiates the process of setting up the date of the public hearing and then moving forward. The council could decide not, if they find a specific reason not to vacate it, then
Well, my thinking is if you've done what you said, a roundabout would fit without that right of way, and that land is being maintained by the city and/or it's off the tax rolls, why not fix that?
Okay.
So that's part of the reason for my motion.
Okay. Anything else on this? We've had a motion and we've voted on it. Item 5, discussion possible action on proposed amendment to municipal code, chapter 255, zoning to change and update the description of the area of the official wellhead protection zone map for 255-19B2.
as I stated in my planner comments, this is really a housekeeping item. Water Utility Commission has been working for the last several months to update their wellhead protection program. This amendment, basically, what it does is refer to the areas where the wellhead protection applies to, which are called, they're specific time zones of where water moves within proximity to the wells. And so it's kind of a general description of how the ordinance refers to these specific previous plans and so forth. So it's really a housekeeping item. I did talk to Kip Peters, the director of the Water Utility Commission. He said they've been working at DNR. DNR reviewed the proposed language, agreed to it. So to me, it's really a housekeeping item. I recommend, because it's before you, because it's part of the zoning code. Any amendment to the zoning code has to go to the planning commission for review recommendation before it goes to the council for a public hearing. So it's really a housekeeping item. I recommend approval.
I move to approve that item. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Other business or informational purposes only for upcoming agenda.
The only thing was where we meet on the 24th or meet on the 31st. I know some members are gone on the 24th and some members are gone on the 31st. the only reason I suggested maybe moving it from the 31st to the 24th, because I'm gonna have cataract surgery earlier that week, and I don't know, what my comfort level going into the meeting later in the week is gonna be on the 31st. I mean, I can still go back and we'll talk to the other members, see
Sure.
which meeting we have the majority, the greatest number of members present, and then we'll probably let that decide. Otherwise, I might be looking out one eye.
Mr. Magoo?
So for informational purposes, can you update us all on the Burkmost Park
Yes.
Land?
land that we recommended? Yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially, I have been contacted by a member of the Burkmost family. Catherine McKittrick she is gone, was back just for a day or two, is gone again until about the middle of next week. Once she's back, we'll set up a meeting with the Burkmost family, explain what's being proposed area, and then we'll go from there. But we have not had specific conversations other than there's been some emails going back and forth between a member of the Burkmost family and myself. I responded that, yes, we do want to set up a meeting, but there is a process, state law, to contact the family that deeded the property, and then, so we're taking the proper procedures to advance this consideration.
Just for information.
Yep.
From a council perspective, I don't think we want to, if there's going to be, I don't think we want to spend a ton of money on, I don't want to say litigation, but even, we've got to follow the proper procedure, but anything needs to be paid for by the people that want to have that property abandoned to them. I think that was kind of the.
And as part of the motion.
That was part of it, yeah.
Yeah, so but I think we initially didn't know if there would be any heirs or
Yeah.
that would happen. And
The city has been contacted.
yep, so we do know there is, so. If there's anything else,
I move to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.